Major news coming out of the car world. Carvana's biggest competitor, Shift, has officially filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and is no longer operational. Now, this is definitely a scary thing to happen to any company, let alone Shift, and this could potentially point towards some very negative signs for Carvana in the future. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down exactly what happened with Shift and some of the crazy debt that Carvana is reporting, which is in the billions, which could potentially lead to their demise as well. So we are going to go over the bankruptcy filing notes that Shift reported and then go over what do Carvana's financials actually look like. Now, it is really sad to see this happen because when Shift emerged in 2014 and companies like Carvana started coming to the scene, the intent was really to disrupt the dealership car buying model, right? Where consumers like you and I have to walk into the dealership, deal with a salesperson, negotiate on a car price, and go through that entire hassle. Now, it seems like this day and age, to be able to purchase a car online with a click of a button, do all of your financing, and have your vehicle delivered, well, that should really be the norm. But of course, there are many forces out there that don't necessarily like the idea of that type of innovation taking place, because dealerships really thrive on the fact that they have these franchise laws in place where manufacturers are obligated to sell their vehicles through dealerships. And so this really disrupts that entire environment, if you will, and could completely change the landscape of car buying, which many dealerships may not necessarily want. Now, another thing that happened is in 2021 and 2022, and even till today, because of all the supply constraints, brands like Carvana and CarMax actually had some of the highest levels of inventory. So they were snatching up cars left and right. These companies are venture backed and they had the ability to buy so much of the supply that was on the market, which of course is not going to make dealers happy either. Now, Shift was a part of that grouping as well, and unfortunately, things didn't work out so well with them. So essentially what started happening with Shift is that they started putting a lot of their money towards investing with other companies, purchasing other companies, and really focusing on their technology and not so much their profits. And eventually that did lead to their demise. Now, I'm going to read a couple of excerpts from the bankruptcy filings that is going to illuminate what's happening, and then we're going to take a look at some of Carvana's losses. Now, here it says in spring of 2022, Shift acquired competitor Fair's dealer listing marketplace and then merged with consignment to retail used vehicle company CarLots by the end of 2022, pushing its employee counts to 590 people. Shift said the Fair acquisition was intended to help the company build a digital marketplace where both the dealers and independent sellers could list their cars alongside Shift's owned inventory, according to one bankruptcy filing. So essentially, they were trying to broaden their marketplace so dealers could list, independent sellers could list, and they had their own inventory as well. Now, on the face of it, it seems like a smart move because when you own all of your inventory, well, then you are highly leveraged because you have all that inventory cost. And as we know, the entire lending environment has completely changed. Interest rates are at all-time highs, inflation is high, and it's made it very, very difficult for the consumer to purchase vehicles, which means companies like Shift and Carvana get left holding this inventory that they acquired at all-time highs. Now, remember in 2021 and 2022, your values on your used vehicles were absurdly high. And if you're a Turo host, then you might know if you liquidated any of your vehicles at that time, you were getting insane price offers from these companies. Now, I myself sold to many of these companies in 2021, and I got insane amounts of money for my cars and actually took a major profit on them. So because they bought at all-time highs, now in an environment where interest rates are high and it's very difficult to sell these cars because lenders don't want to lend, consumers can't afford these cars at, 8 to 12 to 15% interest rates, well, then they get left holding the bag in a sense. And so that makes them and puts them in a financially very tough situation. Now, reading further, meanwhile, the CarLots merger was designed to leverage its presence auctions and dealer marketplace platform on the East Coast through a new omnichannel experience. But by February 2023, just 2 months after the merger had closed, Shift decided to exit CarLot's presence on the East Coast and shut down the Downers Grove, Illinois location in order to focus on core West Coast markets. One remaining CarLot's facility in Pomona, California, remained open alongside Shift's locations in Los Angeles, San Francisco Bay Area, and Portland. The cracks were clearly visible by the end of Q1 of 2023. Shift laid off 30% of staff and reported it had generated $65.6 million in revenue in the fourth quarter, a 67% drop from the same year ago period. So they essentially had a 67% increase in their losses, which is absolutely massive. Shift also reported an operating loss of $60.7 million in the fourth quarter, a 14% increase from the same period in 2021. Shift may have been cutting costs through layoffs, but it was still spending its cash on developing its technology, a growth over profit strategy that Wall Street was rejecting. Now, the thing with companies like Shift and CARVANA is that they chose to go public. And when you are a publicly traded company, well, you have a lot of other forces that you have to deal with. You are not privately held, and that can get very tricky, and that has ultimately led to the demise of Shift, which is very, very sad. So that prompted me to really dive into kind of the health of Carvana and how is Carvana doing, because we know in 2021 and in 2022, Carvana had the largest holding of used car inventory, which made them very powerful, especially during a supply chain shortage, right? Everyone wanted more cars. Carvana had them, but that also meant that Carvana paid top dollar for those cars because they were acquiring them at a time when used car values were absolutely through the roof. So how is Carvana doing today? And this is fascinating to me. In 2023, Carvana's net income / loss, so they took a loss of negative $5.02 billion with a B dollars. That is a 172.6% increase in losses year over year. I mean, these numbers are just absolutely staggering. And what can you say about it? They are just massive losses, over $5 billion. But the one that really struck me the most is that it's a 172% increase in losses from the previous year, which is just insane. Their gross profit was $1.392 billion, a 19.68% decline year over year. So despite having a gross profit of just a little over $1 billion, their profits are also declining when you look at them as a percentage, which means their losses are increasing as time goes on. I mean, when you have over $5 billion in losses, without even doing all the math on it, it is very hard to see how you can continue to survive, let alone thrive as a company, especially when you're holding so much inventory. So here are some of the financial highlights for Carvana in 2023, which are really eye-opening. There's 4 key ones. Number 1, their revenue fell 24% from $3.88 billion in Q2 2022 to $2.97 billion for the quarter ending June 30th, 2023. Number 2, their net loss improved from $439 million to $105 million for a comparative quarters. Carvana incurred a loss of 55 cents per share in the second quarter of 2023, significantly lower than $2.35 incurred the year ago quarter. Carvana completed its debt restructuring, slashing about $1.3 billion of debt and saving the company more than $455 million of interest expenses annually over the next 2 years. Now, Carvana has really fought very hard to restructure their debt because they have so much of it. Because if those interest payments really get out of hand, then that can certainly take you. So kudos to them for really fighting and trying hard. It seems like the people running Carvana are, they've dug their heels in and they're doing their best. For those of you that are financial nerds out there, hopefully some of this financial highlights information is useful for you. And lastly, the last thing that I thought was really interesting was just looking at the market summary for Carvana. They are trading currently at $34.22. Their 52-week high was $57.19 and their 52-week low was $3.55. And the reason why I mention that is because that is an insane amount of volatility, if you will, in the market. And my favorite thing is if you look at their 5-year graph, I mean, in 2021, as you can see in this graph, they are just absolutely climbing, crushing it. And at their peak, which was August of 2021, they were trading at $360.90. So they are now down to about, 30 something dollars, 32, 33, 34, depending on when you look at it. And that is just, it's something, right? It's dramatic, it's volatile. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, I'm really pushing for these companies to work out. The reason being is because they are finally bringing innovation and technology to the forefront when it comes to car buying, which is desperately, in my opinion, needed in the market. The dealership model, buying at dealerships, while for some people it is fantastic, I think as consumers, it's great to have different options. It is great to have different points of leverage, and it's great to have an option of the type of experience that you want. And it is certainly an industry that needs disrupting. Quite frankly, in my opinion, I think as a consumer, you should have the choice of purchasing a vehicle online without having to go to a dealership to finalize your financing contracts and maintenance plans. And dealerships should really serve as glorified service centers. You should be able to take your car there, have a great relationship with your dealership, and not have to worry about whether or not you are getting a great deal on your vehicle. Now, if you like this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I would love to know what you guys think about all things that are happening with Shift and Carvana. Comment down below and catch you guys in the comment section.